Hello, my name is Deborah Gonzalez and welcome back to Social Media and the Law. Today's session is going to be looking at the concept of e-professionalism for attorneys, and I'm also going to have a few tidbits for you law students who are out there as well. What I'd like to begin with is just some real life examples of some of the tweets and posts that have gone up by attorneys and law students. First, an attorney on Twitter, and he tweets, and I quote, "Stuck in a conference call with a bunch of idiots. Calgon, take me away." A law student tweets, "Just got a job offer. Selling my soul to the devil for financial stability." In this summer, Coca-Cola invited some young people to its Swelter Stopper summer events. And while they were there, they were actually given wristbands that had microchips. And these microchips would send live feed updates to their Facebook page. So they didn't even have to do anything. Just the wristband itself with the microchip would send those live feeds up there. Here's a Facebook post. "Care to take a sick day and join me at the beach on Friday?" And another one. "What time did you get home last night? Can't believe we drank all those tequila shots." Also to note, 2 attorneys were disciplined for a heated social media exchange, calling each other's names via Twitter and email. And then 2 other attorneys were actually disbarred for cutting and pasting portions of their brief from Wikipedia. And probably one of the most famous mishaps to deal with Twitter, Courtney Love, the singer, was sued by one of her former attorneys because of a tweet that she sent out that basically accused the attorney of a buyout. She said, "I was blank devastated when Rhonda J. Holmes Esquire of San Diego was bought off." Well, she was sued and she lost that. She paid her attorney a lot of money, and you would have thought that she would have learned her lesson, but in March of this same year, she did it again and ended up paying another designer over $400,000 for defamation from a tweet. Now, as you listen to these examples, some of you might be scratching your head and saying, well, why would anybody tweet things like that or post things like that? And a lot of it is because this technology is still new. It's new as a tool, and most attorneys and law students have the misconception that what they put on social media, on Twitter and Facebook, that only certain people are able to see it, that it's private in a certain way. And we're going to see that it really isn't, and you have to be very careful about what you post. Because some of those tweets and posts, for example, the one of the law student who said, "I got a job offer and now I'm going to sell my soul." Well, what occurred was that somebody from the company actually saw that post, and then that law student did not get that job. So you want to be very, very careful. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to just go over a little bit about what is social media, because I know you've probably listened to the other sessions, but just as a quick little recap so that we're on the same page, and some types of social media that attorneys and law students are using. And then I want to go right into this idea of e-professionalism, the concept, and then some best practices about what we can do as attorneys and those in the legal profession to make sure that we are being as professional as possible in the online environment. So first of all, when we talk about social media, we're talking about a series of tools that help with communication. Okay, and it's a communication that is two-way, so it's not just broadcasting information out, but it's actually engaging in conversations with our clients, with other attorneys, with other people in the professional arena, or even in the business industries that we might be practicing in. Okay, but besides being that communications medium, we also have to realize that social media is changing the paradigm of the way that our clients and other professionals that we work with, our colleagues, and even ourselves, the way that we interact to do business, the way that we interact with our families or our friends. And so it can also affect the way we interpret the world around us, okay, and how we interpret how big that world is or how small the world is. So that's why it's so important to really take a look at this. We know that more and more attorneys are using social media. We have almost 63% of large firm attorneys that have some kind of digital presence, whether it's a website, whether it's a blog, whether it's a Twitter account or Facebook, but they're on there, okay? And we know that 62% of attorneys are using a particular social media platform called LinkedIn. We know that most of the attorneys, why are they on there? They're looking for career development. They're looking to network. They're also looking to be able to get more clients. And 88% of attorneys are using smartphones. Okay. Besides that, and you know, more and more the courtrooms are allowing this kind of technology in the smartphones, but also the tablets are gaining in use. And so we know that 15% of attorneys are using tablets when they go to courts. And of course, about 89% of those tablets, the preference right now is an iPad. And I think we're just going to see more and more of that kind of technology in use as we go to court and as we engage with our clients and other colleagues within the legal profession. Okay, so let's take a really brief recap about some of the social media platforms that most of the attorneys are looking at or are dealing with. The first one, of course, is Facebook. Facebook being the social platform, the one that's really much more personable. And there is a difference between a Facebook personal account for an individual and a Facebook fan page, which are usually now developed for businesses. And some law firms have some fan pages as well. Now, what's interesting is that, you know, because fan pages are relatively new, less than a few years old, there were some law firms and there were some attorneys that had Facebook personal accounts that they were using for business purposes, okay? And so something that you might want to consider is that if you had a personal account but now want a Facebook account, you want to keep those separate, but you do want to look at the fan pages as those specifically for the business aspect versus the personal Facebook account that's really for family and friends and close relatives, things like that. The next platform that we want to look at is Twitter, and Twitter being that micro-blogging platform. You know, you have about 140 characters in order to disseminate information. And we're seeing that, you know, before Twitter, it used to be, well, am I walking my dog? Am I having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? You know, I just got out of the courthouse. And now what we're seeing is that people are really sharing a lot of good, valuable information. So they'll find something on a website or an article that came out, for example, in the New York Times or the Law Daily, and they'll tweet the link to that so that other attorneys and other people interested in that particular area will be able to have that article as a reference or a resource. So we're seeing much more of that in the way that attorneys are using Twitter to disseminate that information. There's also YouTube, and YouTube is that depository of video on different aspects. You know, it's funny, but most people will say, well, if you want to learn how to do something, just, you know, go to YouTube and do a search for that particular item. So if you want to know how to bake a cake, or if you want to know, you know, how do you make something, you might just go to YouTube. I don't believe there are any YouTube videos saying how do you win a case yet. But if any of you want to try it, just let me know. I'd love to see it. The next one that I want to talk about is LinkedIn. This is the one I mentioned before. LinkedIn is sort of your professional presence online. And it's very important because what we're seeing is that individuals, you know how they used to go, a client used to go to the yellow pages and just see if your law firm was there, see if you were listed to try to see how credible you are. Well, what we're seeing now is that individuals are actually going into LinkedIn to see some of your credentials as an attorney, to see some of the things that you've been involved in, to see sort of your track record. It's like having an online resume there, but you can do a lot more than just put in your work experience or even your practice area experience. You can put up presentations that you've done before so people can see if you're a speaker and you might want to do a lot more speaking. They can see some examples of what you've done before. You can put in reading a reading list that's connected to the Amazon.com website that would let individuals know of some of the books or resources out there that you thought were exceptional and that you think, you would like to recommend to others to read. So there are lots of other pieces that you can put into your LinkedIn profile that give a little bit more than just that professional resume. But we are seeing how it is becoming very, very important for verifying credentials as well. And what's interesting, we just had a ruling by the FTC that's talking about, you might be liable if you don't put up the right credentials. If you lie about your credentials on LinkedIn, it might be considered fraudulent statements and claims in terms of advertising. So be very careful about that what you put there, you're not allowed to have any puffery when it comes to your profile on LinkedIn and these social media sites. So something to be aware of. The last platform that I just want to mention here is the one that's called Avvo, A-V-V-O, founded in 2007. Basically, the issue with Avvo is to have a forum where individuals can put in some legal questions or they can search out. It's like a database of attorneys, and they can rank the attorneys. It started first only for lawyers. Now it's expanded to include lawyers and doctors. But there is some controversy with this platform on the end of whether it's just a popularity contest or whether you can actually rig the game mechanics to get a higher ranking than somebody else who may have more experience. But just because you start answering all the legal questions and get the points every time you do one so that you can get a higher ranking. So that one, the consensus is still out there on Avvo as to just how useful it is for individuals to determine the quality of an attorney, and if they want to find one, to be able to do their work. Okay, so that's just a very brief overview. Again, we've gone over these much more in depth in one of our previous ones. But now let's go into something that's very important and why e-professionalism, why the conduct that you have online is so important. And that's because of the goals. Why are attorneys on social media? We mentioned the idea of, first of all, to attract clients. That's where our clients are, and we want to make sure that we're going to be where our clients are so that we can answer the questions when they need help, so that we can make sure that they know what's going on in their case or in an area that's relevant to their industry or their business. So we want to make sure we're doing that. Being on social media, whether it's our website, whether it's Twitter, or even LinkedIn, it also helps establish our relationship, now, our reputation. And this is really, really important, and showcase our expertise. And we have to be careful with that because it can take years to build a reputation, but it can take just one tweet, one wrong tweet, or one wrong post, and that reputation is gone. So we have to be very, very careful, okay? Another reason why we're using social media in the law is to direct traffic back to our website. When we use Twitter and when we use Facebook, we should always have our website address as well so that people can go back and get the full story of what we can offer in terms of services and in terms of our experience. So we want to get them back to the website. So don't just think that social media is a tool you're going to use in isolation. You've got to use all of these tools together for that, okay? It might also be a way that we can get more speaking engagements. Maybe we like to speak. Maybe we want to do much more writing and get published. Maybe we, as an attorney or a legal professional, are actually writing a book that deals with our particular legal practice area, and so we use this to go forward. To get some customer feedback or to find out what are other law firms doing. Maybe there's a particular area of interest, and we just want to see, well, what else are other people doing in this area and what's going on, and how can I apply that, or how do I want to apply it, or how does what I am doing actually relate to what others are doing within that marketplace, okay? And probably one of the biggest goals for attorneys who may be looking for another position or another opportunity, or those law students who are looking for an internship or a clerkship, or they may be looking for their first position. They're in a legal firm. There are lots of ways to use these social media tools to be able to find those kinds of things. And because of that, because you're looking for something such as a job, you want to be careful about what you post. So now that we looked at, a brief overview of the different social media platforms, and we looked at some of the goals of why we as attorneys and law students and legal professionals are out there, just a recap of when we look at social media, we talk about social media in law, we're really looking at three things. Number one, regulating the use of social media, whether it's marketing and issues with privacy, regulating the content of social media, so things like copyright infringement and defamation, and then regulating the access of social media. So whether, at a company, whether they will allow their employees to even access social media while they're on the job site. So those are the three things: use, content, and access. Okay? So one thing that I just want to let everybody be aware of is Twitter actually donated all of its tweets to the Library of Congress for research and preservation. And that's really important, because if one thing you should know is that social media is permanent. Your tweets are not going anywhere. They're going to stay in the Library of Congress. I'm sure that they're going to have some kind of anthropologists or scientists go through that and see what insights they can get on us. But that also means that it will never, ever go away. So you want to make sure what you tweet is something that you want out there. Okay? So now let's get to the crux of what I really wanted to talk about in this session, and that's about E-Professionalism. And we had Chief Justice Carol Husting from the Supreme Court of Georgia, and she wrote an article for the Young Lawyers Division called "Professionalism More Important Than Ever for Young Lawyers." And she related what was going on online and what's happening digitally with the social media and the lawyer's creed, what we all swear to and take an oath to when we become an attorney. And I want to go through that with you so that you can see the connections between that creed and what's going on with what we're doing online. So the first paragraph of that says, "To my clients, I offer faithfulness, competence, diligence, and good judgment." And that issue of competence, right? When we look at that, we usually know that to mean that it's competence within my particular practice area. It's competence in that if I tell my client that I can write them a brief, that I have the skills to write the brief. That if I tell my client I can take them to trial, that I have the skills to litigate their case. But now that competence and due diligence is actually being expanded to the social media environment, where we have opinions stating that an attorney also needs to be aware and understand the way that these social media tools are being used out there, because by understanding that, we can actually provide better service to our clients. So an example of that would be in family law, when a client comes to us and says, I want a divorce. And one of the things that we know, they say that 1 in 8 couples first begin their relationship by finding each other online. But the American Association for Family Lawyers says that 1 in 4 divorces actually have evidence of social media for divorces. And, some family law attorneys I talk to will actually say it's 100%. We have them in every case. But it's important that we understand that, because if we're practicing family law, we need to be able to advise our clients if they're going for a divorce, what's happening on their Facebook page if they go out and put themselves out on a dating site, how they have to be careful. We had one case that because a father stated that he had a Lamborghini and was making a 6-figure income on a dating site, well, his wife's attorney brought that page right into the judge, and the judge awarded alimony and child support based on that statement, not based on the pay stubs he brought from his job, but based on that statement, because he had signed up for the dating service, and the dating service terms of use said you cannot lie when you put your aspects up on your profile. Okay, so that You have to be careful. We have to make sure that we let our clients know. So that's that piece of competence and due diligence. Okay. The next paragraph in the Lawyer's Creed says, to the opposing parties and their counsel, I offer fairness, integrity, and civility. Civility. We have to be careful when we're posting. You know, there's all sorts of confidentiality issues, right? When we're dealing with a client, when we're dealing with a case, we have to make sure that certain information does not get out, but we also have to deal respectfully with the opposing party. As you saw in an earlier example that I gave, there were two attorneys and they were disciplined because they kept going back and forth, calling each other names on social media and saying things on email. It just went back and forth, and social media is very public. So it wasn't just between those two attorneys, but other individuals outside of those two attorneys were seeing what was going on. Okay? So civility, be careful what we post and be careful how we post it, right? It's one thing what you say, another thing how you say it, okay? And also to be fair, you know, the New York bar came out and they had an opinion about e-discovery as it relates to social media and whether an attorney can friend an opposing party to be able to get information to be used against the opposing party in a case. And the opinion really focused on this idea of deception, that you cannot deceive somebody to be their friend in order to get that information. Okay? So that comes in the idea of fairness and equity. You have to be transparent. You have to be upfront who you are. Now, there are other opinions, like in the Virginia State Bar, that says, do not friend. Pennsylvania, do not friend. You know, it is bad. It's not with what we promise that we will do. It's deceptive. So be careful depending on your jurisdiction. You know, some of your bar associations are going to have opinions of this. They might even have a task force. Go look it up, read what they've said so that you know that you are in compliance with that, because you definitely do not want to be disciplined or disbarred for something that, you know, might not have meant anything by it, but it does go against the rules, okay? So be careful about that. Okay, the next phrase in the Lawyer's Creed goes, to the courts and other tribunals and to those who assist them. Okay, those who assist them includes all of those, the bailiff. It includes, you know, the jurors that are going to go and be part of your court case. I offer respect, candor, and courtesy, and I will strive to do honor for the search for justice. Okay? And this is very, very important, because what we're seeing more and more, especially in courts, we're seeing that, you know, as attorneys bring in this technology, their smartphones and their tablets, as they're going through voir dire and asking the questions of the jurors, they're also online Googling the jurors' names and looking up their Twitter accounts and looking up what they wrote on Facebook, and having that be factors in their decision as to whether they're going to select that juror or whether that they're going to excuse that juror from there. Okay, so it's very, very important in that issue. For the last one, it says, to my colleagues in the practice of law, I offer concern for your welfare. I will strive to make our association a professional friendship. Now, it's really interesting because, you know, professional and friendship. Now, I've already stated here that for social media senses, the friendship to me is that Facebook, and for very close friends and family, and the professional are things like LinkedIn. And in my particular opinion, I don't like to confuse those things or to mix those things up, but understand that the Lawyer's Creed is talking about a professional friendship. In other words, a professional relationship of the way that we interact with one another. Okay, now when we looked at that, we saw that we had done, you know, going through the duty that we owe our clients, the duty that we owe the professions and our colleagues. The last piece of the Lawyer's Creed talks about the duty that we owe to the public, and it says, to the public and our systems of justice, I offer service. I will strive to improve the law and our legal system, to make the law and our legal system available to all, and to seek the common good through the representation of my clients. And here again is the importance where that social media aspect comes in, because what we're seeing is if we are using these tools in our practice, in our legal practice, what we want to make sure is that we learn about these tools so that we can make them the most effective, and that it makes the profession in a whole a lot better as we use this. We don't want these tools to be used and just, make our profession worse off or give it a negative connotation. What we want is to use these tools and to be much more effective in what we're trying to do, and especially as we try to be of service to the clients. Okay, so with that, right, that's what we gave our sworn oath to, was that this was what we were going to do, what we offer to do as we become officers of the court, as we are those legal professionals and advocates. So now when we look at the e-professionalism side, first of all, what are we talking about when we talk about e-professionalism? E is easy, right? It's electronic, or meaning in the digital world, anytime you use electronic communication. But professionalism is really looking at a standard of conduct. See, we can't regulate thought, what you think, what you value. We cannot regulate that. But we can regulate conduct, the way that we behave, the way that we act with our clients or with other attorneys or with other judges. So when we're looking at e-professionalism, we're looking at a standard of conduct when we communicate by these digital or electronic means. And that includes email, okay? That includes cell phones and text messaging. Okay, and some people may say, well, why would you even text message a client, or why would you even text message, another attorney? It happens. Sometimes it's the quickest way to get some information out there. You just have to be conscious when you use it that you're using it appropriately. Okay, the social media, whether that's a Facebook status, a tweet, a LinkedIn update, that falls into there. When we use our websites, maybe there's something in our website that sort of has a little form and tells people, fill out this form, and then we'll get back to you and we'll set up an appointment, or we'll be able to answer your question. You want to make sure that that form on your website is done in such a way, excuse me, that the clients or potential clients who are using that form understand that from the very beginning, just filling out that form does not establish an attorney-client relationship, and that there's no privilege, there's no confidentiality in that information that they're sending in that very open inquiry of information. So you might want to put a little disclaimer on that, or you also might want to just say, this information is not privileged, it's not confidential, so just put in information for an appointment and we will get back to you. Okay, because we don't want clients to feel they're pouring out their heart and soul in this email and then it's open, it's not confidential, it's not privileged, it's not protected in that way. Blogs, we have attorneys who do blogs, sort of put periodic articles every once in a while on a particular subject matter that they really enjoy either practicing or that they enjoy studying about, and we're seeing more and more blogs happen. And then webinars and video conferences. So this course, for example, or if somebody is giving a webinar, you want to be careful about how you set that up. If there's anything that I want you to take away from this session on e-professionalism, is how important being professional online is, because what you put online, or what we call electronic information, has three characteristics. Number one, it's public. Okay, no matter what privacy settings you put on, and the passwords and the firewalls, always keep in mind that there is a way to see the information. Think of it. Would you mind what you post? Would you mind seeing it on a billboard out in the middle of the highway? Okay, if you don't mind that, then go ahead and post it. Go ahead and tweet it. If you don't mind that somebody would have seen it on a billboard. But if it's something that you don't want everybody to see, don't put it out there. Number two, it's permanent. And this I had mentioned before. You know, there are backups to backups to backups, okay? You think that you've taken something off, but maybe you shared it with a friend or a colleague and they still have it up. So again, if you don't want it out there, don't put it out there. You know, there are some countries in the European Union, France, and is very particular about this, that are really pushing for this idea of sort of a statute of limitations for data out there online, meaning that at a certain point that data should just delete itself and leave, sort of like a right to oblivion, a right to be forgotten. And so they're really pushing for this idea that data should have sort of like an expiration date and then go away. Because how many of us have not done something back when, and now it comes back to haunt us 10, 15 years later, and we don't want that? So in the EU, they're really concerned about that privacy issue of how much should be out there and for how long. But right now, it's out there and it's staying out there. So you want to be careful about that. So it's public, it's permanent, and it's powerful. You know, although these are words, they're words that can have an impact. People have lost their jobs. People have been disbarred. People have lost scholarships or been thrown out of schools or lost fellowships for things that they've posted. Okay, so there are consequences to the tweets and the posts that we have out there. So that is why e-professionalism is so important, because this e-communication is public, it's permanent, and it's powerful. Okay? Now let's see why in a way. Any information that you share online can influence someone's view of you, especially if they haven't met you yet, right? One thing that's happened, and I remember way back when the internet was first starting, and I was giving this speech, and I had a very young person come up to me and said, you know, that was a great speech. I'm so glad I came. Before I came, I Googled you. And I was like, you Googled me? What, you know, what does that mean? I was Googled, you know, I was really concerned about that. So I went home and I Googled myself, and I wanted to know, you know, what was coming up. If I put in Deborah Gonzalez on Google, what came up? And we're seeing that more and more people, that's what they're doing. If they hear that you're going to speak, or if they hear that you're going to be their attorney, or you're going to be their judge, or you're going to be the opposing counsel, they will go and Google you and find out about you. They want to know. They want to be prepared. If they're going to go into a negotiation, they want to be prepared for that negotiation. If you're going to be the opposing party in that negotiation, they want to know, and they will look at everything, not just the professional stuff, but if the Facebook stuff comes out and you don't have it protected, they will also look at all your personal stuff if it's readily accessible. Okay, so whatever you have out there, your pictures, if you have a certain photo of yourself, as attorney, all the photos should be professional in the professional realm. Now, if you use Facebook, you know, Facebook is much more for family and friends. You might want photos of your family. You know, there are reasons why you might want to put photos up, like sharing with the grandparents, and there are reasons why you might not want to put up photos of your children so that they don't become targets of criminals or people out there. You know, we have a lot of stuff going around. There was an article that was saying, is Twitter helping increase burglaries in a neighborhood? Or Facebook posts that say, we're on vacation and now the criminals know you're not home. They go in and they can actually rob your house. So we have to be careful about what we put up, because people are watching, okay? And it's not just our family and friends and colleagues. It could be potential clients. It can be opposing counsel. It can be judges. It could be jurors on a trial. They might actually go and Google you and Google the other attorney and see who they are. And what we're learning is that more and more attorneys are asking judges to give very specific jury instructions to tell the jury that they're not allowed to Google anybody involved in the jury case or even the subject matter of the case. When they're sequestered, to take away the smartphones. Okay, because they may not have a computer to get internet access, but the smartphone does, and they'll be able to use the browser on the smartphone. So it's very important, all these things that are happening, because it is about, when I get that information, it's going to help me form an opinion of this person that I was looking for. And you know, for students, this is extremely important about what you put up there, because they are looking. You know, we know law schools right now for admissions, they look at your social media profile before they have final decisions on whether you're approved or not to go to that law school. Law firms are doing that, and now clients are doing it on us, the attorneys. So you want to be very, very careful. You know, a good rule of thumb to keep in mind as you're working with these social media tools is maybe to think about, how does what I am posting or tweeting or putting on my profile, how does that help me advance my goals? Okay? If it's going to be detrimental to one of the goals that I stated in the front, meaning that it might turn off my clients, or it might give too much information to the opposing counsel, or it might, you know, put in some kind of, even a sense of impropriety, I don't want to put it up there, because it's not going to help me, and it's definitely not going to help my clients, okay, if I'm representing them. Remember, professionalism is the key of what we're looking at here. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to go over some best practices, some strategies or habits that you can put in place to help assure that you're at the top of your game with e-professionalism, okay? Some of these may seem quite, you know, well, that's common sense, right? But you can also use this as a quick little checklist, not just for you, but for everybody else, your staff who's in your law firm or whoever you're working with. If you even have an intern that's working in your law firm, this is a good checklist to go over with them. Okay, number one, have a professional voicemail message on your firm phones, your home phone. So if you're a student, right, you want a professional voicemail on your home phone if they're going to call you for an internship, but also on your cell phone. And I know for a lot of people, you know, they no longer have that home landline. They may be doing everything just from their cell phone. So you want to make sure you have a professional voicemail message, not, hey, dude, it's your 5 minutes or it's your dime, leave a message. You know, let them know who they've reached, let them know if it's the name of the law firm or your name, and thank you for calling, and leave a message. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Make sure you leave that kind of message so that, number one, the client or the other opposing party or whoever it is who's going to receive this message, that they then, number one, know who actually left it for them, okay, or that they've reached the right party of who they wanted to reach, and that they know what to do next, what information that you need from them so that they can return the call. So for example, I like to say, you know, please speak slowly when leaving your number, because sometimes people just rush through their numbers and you're like trying to write it down, or your receptionist is trying to write it down, and if you don't get the number right, how do you call them back? But let them know what you need them to do. It'll make it so much easier. And even though you say, well, most people should know that, that little reminder, trust me, if you say speak slowly when you leave your number, it will remind them and they will speak slowly. Okay, so it's always helpful to tell them what it is that you need so that you can get back to them. And if it's a potential client, they'll feel a lot better that you got back to them than that, you know, you just weren't able to return their call. Okay, number two, choose the social networking platforms that you're going to be on wisely. You don't have to be on all of them. You can be on one of them. You can be on none of them. That's up to you. But if you are going to be on them, okay, which ones are you going to be on? How are you going to use it? How often are you going to be on it? What's your goal for being there? I've told you a number of times that my Facebook, family and friends only, I use it personally. I actually started it so that I could stay in touch with my daughters. But you know, that's what it is. What I post there and what I talk about there is much more on a personal side of my life. I might share, for example, a funny YouTube video. My oldest daughter loves cats, and so if I see a cute little cat YouTube video, I may put it on, okay? I will not put that on my Twitter account, because my Twitter is much more professional. And if I'm, talking on my Twitter account about intellectual property or social media law, unless that cat YouTube video had some kind of copyright infringement on it, I'm not going to share it there, but I will share it on my personal. So be careful about that. Go over, when you're on these social media networking sites, go over your profile. They estimate that you should be updating your profile like once every 3 months. Something should change. And one of the reasons for that is, like on LinkedIn, when you update your profile, when you change something on your profile, an update will actually be sent to all of your connections. Okay, and it's almost like a little reminder to people, hey, you know what, Deborah's out there and she's on LinkedIn, and look, this is the new thing that she's doing. Pretty cool. Okay, so it's a way to remind people about what it is, but that only happens when you edit your profile. You want to make sure that the profile is up to date, it's accurate, it's current. So if you've changed a job, you want to make sure, if you switched a law firm, for example, you want to make sure that that new change is reflected. Okay, very, very important. Now, I spoke before about the photo. Can't emphasize enough how important that photo is. Clients, they want to see that photo, and they want that photo to represent what their idea of an attorney looks like. And that usually means in a suit. Okay, it doesn't mean, jean or, one of these rock star t-shirts. Even though you may be in entertainment law, the entertainment stars, they still want a lawyer. Okay, they want that person that has the expertise that they can rely on, who is that lawyer, that attorney. They have to look like an attorney. So your photo should represent and give the impression of your competence and your abilities as that attorney. So important. Okay. Conduct some due diligence. I told you the story about how I went, that person, when they said, I Googled you, I went and I rushed and Googled me. Google yourself. What's come up? And don't just Google it once, Google it a couple of times. And then after you Google yourself, you know what? Go to Yahoo and check out on Yahoo what comes up. Go to Bing and check out on Bing what comes up, because each of those, Google, Yahoo, Bing, each of these search engines actually are searching specific databases, not just the internet as a whole, but specific databases of websites that get sort of submitted to them, and that's what they search. So you might find things differently on these different search engines. So you want to do that every so often and just keep track. I'm so excited that in Mexico there's actually, I believe it's a basketball player called Deborah Gonzalez, who's just an awesome basketball player. Now, I am not an athlete at all, so I live vicariously through her. So it's awesome to see what she's doing. Okay. One of the other things that I do is I've set up Google alerts with the areas of interest that I have, like social media law and social media legal, but also I set up a Google alert on my name, Deborah Gonzalez. And now anytime that anything happens online that gets into Google's database, I get an email that gets sent. This is what came up under Deborah Gonzalez today. Now, it doesn't mean that every day something comes up under my name, but when it does and it goes into Google, I get that email so I know what's happening, and I can get that really, really quick, okay? You can also do a Twitter search of your name or your company name or your practice area, and that will come up and let you know what's happening in the Twitter universe. When you find out what's going on, what if you find out something negative? What should you do? We talk about this as digital dirt. Now, some of this digital dirt we've put up. Right? We put it up ourselves. It might have been 10 years ago or 5 years ago. We might have put something up before our privacy settings were done the right way. But the other thing is that some of this digital dirt is actually put up by other people. We may have participated in an event that was hosted by somebody else who then put up those photos, or it might be even a friend or colleague, right, at a company party who has that camera and then puts up those photos. And by the way, your law firm, and this is something that you can advise your clients, if they're going to have a company party, there should be some rules as to what pictures can go up, or whether any pictures can go up at all about what happened at that party in social media, because of the way it can impact the reputation of your law firm and your attorneys and your clients and their companies just by those pictures being up there. So, something to keep in mind for those in terms of holiday parties and things like that, okay? Because the digital dirt is not only what we put up, but what other people can put up, and we need to be diligent. Now, if somebody else put it up, we just can't delete it because it may belong to that other person, so we need to ask them to put it down. We might be very specific, In my family, I tell them, do not tag me on Facebook on those photos. Please do not tag me, okay? Now, I can untag myself, but it's a lot easier if I tell them, don't tag me to begin with, and then I don't have to worry about it, okay? So you might want to set up those rules yourself with your family or with your colleagues or with your staff as to what you allow to go up or not, or what they can tag you or not, and make that very important. Another important thing is do not have an inappropriate email address or an inappropriate Twitter account. Legal divalicious is not very professional. You want to be careful about those kinds of things because, again, it's all about professionalism. That's going to make an impact, right? If a potential client sees that legal divalicious, what does that mean? What kind of attorney is she? What kind of person is she? Is she the type that I can trust with this, major corporate merger that we're doing with a Twitter handle like legal divalicious? I'm not sure. But it does impact the way that people are going to look at you. So make sure that when you're using your Twitter accounts, lots of people will say put their name. And we do have a case that talks about, can you put your name, right, if it's your Twitter account, versus putting your name and company name, and whether that now, just because you put the company name, like let's say Deborah ABC Company, does that account now specifically belong to that company, even though they had nothing to do with it, even though I tweet and I say nothing about the company, but the fact that I put the company name in the Twitter account, they now have an argument that it belongs to that company, okay? And we have a case where a gentleman, he switched his Twitter account from John ABC Company to John XYZ Company, and it was considered stolen trade secrets and proprietary information of that first company. It was 17,000 Twitter followers that he just switched by doing that. So you want to be careful about that, okay? Be careful of what you post. It's the simplest rule. If you're in doubt, don't put it up. If anything in you, in your gut, is just saying, this can come back, what if somebody should see this, that I'm not sure if I should or not, don't do it. It's easier not to do it than to try to take it out. Because remember, permanent. It never goes away, okay? Keep that in mind. Be careful about, you'll get a lot of friends requests, like on Facebook, or, connection requests on LinkedIn. It was very interesting. In Avo, one of the things that you can do, and in LinkedIn too, you can have recommendations, right? People can recommend you. And I received an email from an attorney, a gentleman I did not know at all. And he sent me an email. This was on Avo. And he said, based on your answers and your profile, I can give you a recommendation and you can give me a recommendation. Well, that was really not what those recommendations are meant for. Those recommendations are meant for people who you've actually worked with, people that you know, that you can then give those recommendations to. Now, when I looked at this guy's profile on Avo, he had like 86 recommendations. And you know what? Because of the email he sent me, I don't have any credibility in any of those 86. And in fact, I have very little credibility at all in him based on that he would send me that email. Okay? So those recommendations, they're valuable. They're what we call social currency because you're vouching for somebody else in that online environment. So you know what? If you don't know that person, don't recommend them. And only ask for recommendations from people that have worked with you. Maybe a client who said, I thought you were great. Then ask them for the recommendation, okay? But be very careful about that. Again, on the online world, this is social currency. It has a lot of value as it relates to your reputation, okay? And that's something that you have to protect. But as for accepting friends, do you accept a judge as a friend on Facebook? What if you knew that judge before you ever even had a case with that judge? Could you have been friends? What if you went to law school with that judge before they became a judge? Can you be friends? Do you have to stop being friends if you're in front of them with a case? Okay, how does this become ex parte communication in a trial? Be careful who becomes your friends. More than ever, the idea of, who you affiliate with, even through those connections, can become important. People do, like on LinkedIn, one of the things that I do is after I meet somebody, and I'll usually tell them, this is meeting them face to face, I'll say, do you have a LinkedIn account? And they'll say yes. I said, would you mind if we connect? Can I send you an invite? And I like to ask their permission first than just sending the invite. I like to ask their permission first. And, most of them will say yes, that's not a problem. And that way, when they see the invite, they're more likely to accept it because I've already, asked them about it. And so it's something that they have in mind. But one of the things is that when your invitation is accepted, they then give you sort of this email, and it says some of the people that they're connected to. And it's always interests me to see who other people are connected to and to see what their positions are, their titles are, what area, what industry they're sort of walking around in and what's going on in their world. And it just gives me a little bit more insight into them as an individual and more information for me. Okay, so you want to be careful about who you friend and who you do not. Okay. One other thing that's very important, make sure to check your emails and your voicemails regularly. Now, what's really cool is that there's, this software that if you get a voicemail, it actually can convert it to either a sound file that then can get emailed to you, or it gets converted to text and then sent to you so you can see what that is. But there really should be no excuse for not regularly looking at your email. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to check your email every time the beep goes on. Okay, you can specify a certain time in your day that you are going to check your email and your voicemails, but you don't want to let days and days and days go by. And if you are going on vacation or you're going to be out of the office for any length of time, make sure to have some kind of message, okay, so that if you're sending an email and you're going to be out, if you are not going to regularly be checking your email, let them get an automatic response that says that says, I'm going to be out of the office, I'm in trial, I'm doing this, I will return it when I get back, and give them that estimate of when to get back so that they're not then repeatedly sending you email and calling you and leaving you 5 voice messages and them getting more frustrated and upset because you haven't responded to them. Let them know, okay, what's going on, but please do respond. It's very, very important, okay? The other thing is to follow up on electronic communications. Now, I'm not talking about following up on spam, right? I'm not talking about following up on advertisements. We get a lot of things that really do not require any kind of response. But if it's a client or a colleague or another, the opposing counsel or something, make sure that you're following up on that communication and make sure to read it. Read the entire thing. This is so important. We get emails in and they have attachments and we just forward them. Open the attachment first. Make sure that you're sending it to the right person. And here's this thing also, be wary of the reply versus the reply to all button, okay? Because sometimes you just need to reply to one person. You don't need to tell everybody everything that's going on, because sometimes if it's not relevant to them, you don't need to get that information out there. So just be very, very careful between the reply and the reply to all. Be careful to read every attachment that comes to you and to make sure that that attachment is going to the appropriate person, because this also can have effect on confidentiality issues, breaches of that confidentiality that can lead to breaches of contract. So you want to be careful about how you're dealing with that electronic information that you're getting. Okay. Check your privacy settings on each of these social media networks. There is a setting in LinkedIn that I talked about in one of the previous sessions about not using your profile for their social media advertising. So you want to make sure that you're looking at these things, the Facebook settings, who can see you, who cannot see you, what they can see, what they cannot. Even Twitter has a way that if you want your tweets protected, only those that you accept as a follower can be your follower. Okay, so you have to make sure that you check them out and then set them the way that you feel the most comfortable with. Now here's the next hard one. And in terms of e-professionalism, a lot of that is about respecting the people that you're working with in that moment. And you know, as attorneys, we do a lot of meetings, okay? Now, one of the things that smartphones and tablets and laptops have led us to believe is that we're really good at multitasking. Well, the studies show that we're really not. That actually we're doing a lot of things, but we're really not getting them done to the accuracy and to the quality that they really need that focus to be done. So when we're in a meeting, we need to resist that temptation of taking out that cell phone and answering a text message as we're speaking with a client, answering the text message of another client, or answering an email of another case. Let's be very, very conscious that if we're in a meeting, we're in the meeting with that particular client, we're in the meeting with that particular opposing counsel, and deal with that case so that we can do it to the best of our capabilities, and so that they also feel respected as we're talking about this. Remember that lawyer's creed. One of the things that we owe all parties is our respect and our focus and our due diligence and our capabilities. So let's make sure that we're addressing that as well. Okay, so that's a lot of stuff that's dealing with e-professionalism. I hope you enjoyed this session, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye-bye.